Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room. I'm Robin Adair. With me, as always, the Croatian sensation himself, John Juricic. And John, so many things to talk about. We're going to be covering a lot of this with Judi Tyabji in a moment.
Where to start?
Former MLA. She always has lots to talk about. And I want to talk about something else, though, before we get into sort of the big headline stories of the week or of the month. It is a headline story, but it's a little different. Lloyd Robertson passed away at the age of 92. And I can tell you, back when I was a reporter, back in the misty times of the past, I used to have an office at the legislature when I was the part of the Victoria or BC Press Gallery and was Czech TV's legislative reporter. But I also had a desk at Czech TV. So I went to Czech TV one day and wanted to go to my desk because I had some stuff there I wanted to examine, and I had my own computer there. I had my own stuff. Everybody's desk in a newsroom is sacrosanct. Well, there was somebody sitting at my desk with his back to me and his feet up on top of the desk. And I thought, well, what the heck is this? So I walk up to him and I said in my big booming voice, "Excuse me, you're in my desk." And he leaps up out of his desk and says, "I'm so sorry." And he turns around and it's Lloyd Robertson. And I said, "Lloyd, it's okay. You can sit at my desk." So he couldn't have been nicer. I've met him a few times over the years, a class act. And boy, 92, sad to see him go. What a career. And just thought I'd tell my little Lloyd Robertson story to kick off the show, Johnny.
That's great. That's great. And for those of us that are getting on in age, although we don't look it, when someone like that passes, that was so monumental in our lives, and folks don't entirely get that now they have literally 500 ways in which to absorb media. Back then, we had maybe three. We would, we'd watch CBC, we'd watch CTV, maybe a third station. That's it. That's all we had. And we got all of our news from these newscasts. These people running these newscasts became our heroes. They were our leaders. And back then, you got to be our age to fully get that. When someone like him passes, it's a monumental Canadian figure. So did you retrieve anything from the desk that you could say?
Oh, I got all my stuff.
Lloyd,
he didn't steal it.
Lloyd
He didn't
Robinson.
steal anything. That's the headline. He didn't take anything. So, but Johnny, people complain that Canada doesn't have its own culture, that somehow we're bereft of a culture. Why don't we just get absorbed by the United States? Sure, we have a culture. We've got people like Lloyd Robertson who've been in our lives for you and I for most of our lives. And for younger people, you can hitch your wagon to other icons, and there will be lots of them in the future. So we have to really believe in the people that lead our community and stand out in different fields. And Lloyd Robertson was one of them. And I'm proud that I'm of the same nationality as Lloyd Robertson. So there's my little flag wave now. And it's a sort of a very veiled kick at the USA again, who are in all these negotiations still with Canada about CUSMA and free trade. Anyway, John, I think we should move on to our big guest now.
Absolutely. And also, as usual, one of our most popular guests. And so great to hear a little bit of the flavor from another part of British Columbia. Always love that when we hear that from our guests. I think we need to give a rousing welcome to Judi Tyabji.
So let's zoom her in.
Let's zoom her in. Come on.
And now joining us from Powell River. is Judi Tyabji. And Judy, so great to have you back in the Rumble Room.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And Judy, of course, you were a longtime MLA in the Okanagan. You were based for some time in down in the South Okanagan, I believe, and a lot of family all over that region where they're having a lot of forest fires. And we're having forest fires, it seems, continually every summer. It's been kind of cool on the coast. Doesn't seem to matter. We still have fires down here. We have lots of them in the interior, lots of them right across the country. So my question to open this Rumble Room is, what's Mark Carney going to do about it? I mean, all he talks about is we need more submarines, we need more airplanes, we need a bigger armed forces because we need to show the Americans we're serious about NATO. But what about the forest fires? Don't we
right?
need a lot more forest fire equipment, a lot more people trained to fight fires? Where's the money and the will for that?
Well, I think the money and the will is going to have to follow the planning. And my own feeling, and yes, you're right. I mean, the Okanagan's been my family home since 1973. I'm only temporarily on the coast to do some project stuff, but that is where my grandchildren will all be growing up, and where I expect I will, retire, or if I ever do retire, maybe just continue to work in a different capacity. But and the beauty of that area cannot be overstated. It's beautiful. And so going back to the wildfires, we've been seeing for decades that climate change is affecting everything. I mean, I was talking about it in the 1980s, and it was still an argument. There's no such thing as climate change. They were originally called it global warming, and then people were like, look, it's so cold this winter. There's no such thing as global warming. We still have a debate now, but the debate is whether or not human activity is causing climate change. And I've, going back to the 80s, said, how about we do the precautionary principle where we say, let's not argue about what's causing it. Let's acknowledge that it's happening and regionalize our activities instead of the global activities. Now, going back to Mark Carney and regional versus global, ironically, in the 1980s, we signed all of these free trade agreements and NAFTA, and we created this international interdependence with the United States and Mexico as our primary source. And now, in the age of rising protectionism in the United States, we've really been hoisted on our own petard there. So, of course, he's focusing on sovereignty, because otherwise there is no Canada.
Well, he needs
And
to.
in the middle, he has to. But the boreal forests will burn down. That's what's happening. Okay. The whole world is changing climate-wise. The Arctic is now, a strategic area of international focus, which is why the submarines come into effect, which is why we're talking very closely with NATO. We're talking to the Scandinavian countries, et cetera. So we're seeing this shift. Now, Canada, one of the few countries that has three major oceans, has to focus up there. But I feel that rather than equipment, we should be dealing with the wildfires through planning and mitigation between wildfire season. I remember the first time I heard someone say wildfire season, I said, I grew up in the Okanagan. We didn't have wildfire season. What we did have were orchards that went up into the mountains with irrigation. Okay, so there was a microclimate of completely different. Where did we spend those 40-degree days? Under the apple trees and with the dandelions. We didn't have the sort of glyphosate toxic strips of bare patches of soil that we see in a lot of the wineries and orchards, where there's no tree cover, there's no mountain irrigation. We took out 5,000 acres of orchards in the 1980s, early 90s, and replaced it with subdivisions. So we paved it. We literally paved paradise in the Okanagan. Now, we can mitigate that. I mean, people have to live somewhere. I get it. But how we mitigate that is tree cover, depaving, which is a big movement happening in the United States, where they're removing asphalt and changing it with things that actually don't absorb heat and retain heat and make things worse. So we have to start planning, and the planning has to be, let's stop arguing about whether or not it's climate change or who's causing it. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows asphalt is hotter than a tree. So
Judy,
how about we
Judy,
just,
I'm going to jump in because I fully agree with everything you're saying. I feel
don't
that.
Be so disagreeable, John.
Oh, we'll get into. Well, I'll start disagreeing with you soon. So why haven't any governments done this? Like, yes, climate change. Yes. Okay, I know there's battles over that, but at some point, managing these assets is as efficient or productive as dealing with climate change. Why? Come on, there's got to be a reason. Both on either side have not been dealing with this.
It's not even either side. It's every level: municipal government, regional government, provincial, federal. Nobody's dealt with it. I mean, I've been talking about this for decades, so I know no one's dealt with it. I mean, I gave up on politics as a route to actual long-term solutions because the election cycle is 4 years. And who funds the politicians? Well, a lot of developers do. And I'm not even saying that in a negative way. Most young people today have opted out of politics. Interestingly enough, we saw in the last federal election that a lot of the emerging young vote went to Pierre Poilievre, not Mark Carney. Ironic in many ways, but it's because Poilievre was giving them a message that resonated. If you don't have decades of experience in politics, somebody who says life is too affordable, yes, it is. They're taxing you too much, yes, they are. You know, they're giving them a vote because they're just entering politics and it resonates. So those of us who've been around for a while, like, that may not, that may not solve the problems, because we might go further and go, yeah, grocery prices are up because of the tariffs, because of the supply chains, because we didn't invest in regional economies. I feel,
So
gambled
back,
on.
Judy, back to my point. Is there some reason this is not are there large economic interests that are not interested in mitigating the forests to help stop forest fires?
Yeah, well, yes, but also people vote with their pocketbooks, and their pocketbooks don't necessarily understand that mitigating wildfires is worth the tax dollars, because otherwise you're spending billions fighting them. I mean, if you've spent time, as I have in the Okanagan, where you see the helicopters picking up a bucket of water and dumping it on this tower of flame, you know that that's not going to put it out. It's like it's the last thing that you do. And there's also the issue of air quality and what that's doing to our lungs. We have a publicly funded healthcare system. There's going to be long-term impacts on that. So look, let me answer your question differently. What you two are doing is very important, because you're creating a forum for conversation. How many forums are there for actual dialogue, non-toxic, non-accusatory conversations, like the one you did with Rich Coleman? That was fantastic. The data that came out of that is necessary data. How do we get that in front of most people in a way where they'll listen? Because the attention span for a lot of young people, maybe it's a couple minutes. Even myself, I have a short attention span. I always have, though, right, Robin? So even back with the TV shows. But so I feel like until we actually have a forum that engages conversation where people are actually actively listening, we can't fix the problems, because everyone's running around with their own problems, yelling at each other, right? And, it's a very stressful time. It is. But I feel like we can't fix it until we have conversations.
Fair enough. That's well put. Speaking of putting out fires, as we shift just a little bit in our conversation, Kerry-Lynne Findlay, the new BC Conservative leader, certainly has had some fires to put out in her early time in office. Or she's actually not in office in the legislature, but she's now the leader of the party. And some of her MLAs refusing to give up their seats so that she can sit in the legislature. And there's fractures all over the place. It seems to me that she is really having a tough time in the early going. Do you think this is about being a woman? Do you think this is about the fact that there's already a lot of division in that party? It would be very difficult for anybody to pull it together. And do you think maybe people are a little harder on her than they should be, considering how new she is to the job?
So, great questions. There's definitely a gender dynamic. It is always harder for women in politics, period. I have almost written articles about Danielle Smith. Like, is there a lot of political overlap? No, there's not. Do I see her being treated unfairly? Oh my gosh, yes. And there are things that she does that are very, very clever, never get reported. I only see stuff on social media as gone. Then she does something that somebody can attack, boom. So I don't know, Kerry-Lynne Findlay. I do feel, going back to the bigger picture of the Conservative Party, many, many people wanted the Conservatives to pick someone who could unite all the non-NDP voters. Okay. But how many of those people showed up to actually help that happen or vote for that? I don't know. All we know is that their membership absolutely boomed. I mean, apparently over 400% increase in members. That tends to indicate to me that some special interest groups showed up, and she was the choice. It feels a bit to me like the end of the Socreds with Van der Zalm coming up and then Rita Johnston, but I could be completely wrong. What I do know is that for those those who don't consider themselves right wing, there is no real apparent leader. And I think that poses a problem for the right wing, because you cannot defeat the NDP in British Columbia. You cannot form government without uniting the non-NDP vote. So I feel that what the Conservatives did is they showed up and they were Conservatives and they elected a Conservative leader. She is doing what many new leaders do. She's cleaning house to put in her people. That's normal. There's a lot of people going, oh, it's the end of the world. Meh, I don't know if it is. Time will tell. Maybe she will actively listen and realize that she has to unite people, but I don't know her, so I don't know if she'll do that. If she doesn't do that, she doesn't have a chance. Now, we have very little time for anyone who is non-NDP to actually bring something together. I noticed that CentreBC have Mike Bernier. Oh, sorry.
I know John's got some questions on that.
Okay.
Let's let John launch off on his questions.
All right.
On that.
I'm trying to steer you.
Good luck, John.
You're a very hard person to steer around. Though,
Good luck, right? Good luck. We ended our forest fire discussion, I think, really well with this notion that if we don't communicate better, we're not going to solve these problems.
Yeah.
I have to think this is the fundamental problem with this leader, female or not, right or not, middle or not, communicate.
Right.
What an opportunity to come out and talk about how to deal with forest fires. What an opportunity to come out and talk about how they're going to fight the U.S. over these liquor bans, etc. I mean, even captured the moment. I've been criticizing this guy since the moment he walked in. And I thought, thank you. Why couldn't someone else have done that? And
he nailed it.
Right? Like, communicate.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Eby, but every time he talks about the tariff stuff, he nails it. I'm like,
it's like what?
Well, all you have to do is say I'm against. I don't like what the tariffs are doing, and I don't like what the Americans are doing, and you're a hero, right? I mean,
but he was a bit more succinct when he said, if you can't be friends with Canadians, who can you be friends with? I'm like, wow, that was very articulate.
So why can't Carol? Why can't the other side say that? So then this middle party, BC Middle or whatever it's called, CentreBC, sort of gets what is generally agreed to as a very middle guy, a very sort of liberal type of a candidate in Mike Bernier, and I thought, no chance. They're just noise. Well, I don't think that way anymore. I think the right will split, and I think and then I heard rumors. That's all you need now, just rumors. It doesn't even have to be true. That some Trump flackies came up and talked to the Conservative leader, the Conservative Party. You hear that and you go, what? You know, it just. I don't think they're ready. I think I totally agree with you. So now, what's going to happen? What's actually going to happen, Judy? Are they going to get their communications piece operating? Hey, can you look in a crystal ball?
I mean, are you asking me to predict the next election?
Go ahead, Judy.
That's all I'm asking you to do.
If I throw the chicken bones on the table, it's another NDP government. It may be a minority, but I don't think so. I think they're going to get another majority. And I think that they are governing as if they expect to have one more majority. And what I mean by that is they also remind me of the last days of the Socrats. They really do. Although they've got one more. I think that at this point, Eby's got one more term in him. I know that there's been a poll that says his popularity is relatively low. I don't know how true that is. It's going to sound funny, but a lot of the people, I talked to people who are polarized on Eby, and so far everybody who voted NDP last time that I talked to is going to vote NDP again. Everyone. They're not going to change their vote.
I hear that too, Judy. I also hear though some NDPers that I speak to say they're unsure about the leader. You know, that doesn't mean that necessarily David Eby will be leading. It could they could pull a Mark Carney and bring somebody out, and then suddenly they've got a shiny new leader with shiny new messages. And
I don't think they need a shining leader. I don't think so. I think I think that the people who don't like Eby are the people who didn't like him before. I don't see him. The Trudeau factor was different. Keep in mind that the U.S. pumped about 21 million into a campaign to discredit Trudeau, and the Conservatives were like focused on it. It was a little bit like how the NDP targeted Van der Zalm and then they brought up Rita Johnson or whatever. You know, like it's, you can go after the leader. I don't see anyone investing in going after Eby. I think He's there. You might not like him, but he's the uncle you invite for dinner and you put up with him, and then that's fine. You know, everybody else is having a good time. So I would expect that it would have the call for leadership change would have to come from the NDP caucus.
Oh, yeah.
And there would have to be an heir apparent. Who do you see there? I don't see anyone. And I still see, you know, the Adrian Dix and the Mike Farnworth and all these people who were there in the 90s are still there. They're not going to
Dix has been there. Dix ran and lost.
Plus,
So
Eby, you know, Eby is starting to master the art of the one-line zinger. You know, and Mike Harris had that for a while, right? Mike Harris did. And we all, oh, Mike Harris, oh, wow, that's fabulous you're putting up for 1 or 2 lines. That's all it took. You can, you know, the NDP backroom must be going, wow, we actually don't have to change a damn thing. All this
I don't think I'm ready to quite jump on David Eby's bandwagon quite yet.
Well, no, but
I'm not on the bandwagon.
The theme we're talking about here is communication. And he's better at it than the other side.
All you have to do is imagine a 3-way leaders debate, or 4, because the Green Party leader is very good, very good. I think young, dynamic, out there. She's really good with social media. She's punching people in the nose.
She's certainly out there.
She's out there. Well, no, I think it's great. I think that you need her voice at the table. She is on things like agriculture, farming, regional economies. We need someone doing that. So I think she'll pull the NDP back to that message, which somebody has to do. And if you imagine a leaders debate and it's Eby versus Findlay versus Bernier and this Green, I'm sorry, but it's going to be a cakewalk for Eby at this point.
I agree with you, and and no disparagement on anything that's been said here, but you know, Mike Bernier, former mayor of Dawson Creek, former MLA, BC United, nice guy actually. I like Mike Bernier as a person, and he's taken on this project, this CentreBC. Karen Kirkpatrick got it all started, and I think a couple of years ago. Yeah. You yourself, Judy, were in a party of 2. We've seen these small little parties. We're a party of 2. We're the future. We're the thing. And I mean, yeah, it happens once in a blue moon. Somebody I recall a long time ago in what was it, 1991, managed to do a debate with Rita Johnson and Mike Harcourt, where there was a lucky line about, and this is what's wrong with the province of British Columbia, running a party that had virtually no credibility up until that time. And miraculously, suddenly we had the BC Liberals and Gordon Wilson, and miraculously also Judi Tyabji. So it can happen. But it doesn't happen very often in our system. We have a 2-party system for the most part in the British legislative model.
Right. So a couple of things. I know people like to say it was one line in a debate, but I was there for the years leading up to that. And so there were 2 factors that people discount in the 91 breakthrough. One is brand recognition, Liberal Party. I mean, Liberal is one of the founding parties of Canada, for crying out loud. And the Liberal Party in BC had governed longer than any other political party, even though we hadn't had a representative in the legislature for some time. So that's one thing that's very important. But the second thing is, it took from 1987 to 1991. It took tireless work from many people, including Christy Clark was there. I was there. We were just kids, basically. I was a kid when I got elected. But, you know, it took hard work every single freaking day, and people telling us over and over, you don't have a chance, you don't have a chance, you don't have a chance. So in addition to that dynamic, it took the Social Credit Party really losing ground. Like they really imploded. In most parts of British Columbia. So you had many things going on. But if I look at today, I know that there's a need for a middle of the road party. There really is. But we have different factors. What do we have? We have the BC United / BC Liberal, the former governing party of the middle of the road, completely on the shelf somewhere or under a box or somewhere. We don't know where it is because Kevin Falcon hid it. And then it's deeply in debt, and it's still got infrastructure. But I felt that if anyone wanted to bring back a middle of the road party, we should have brought back the Social Credit Party. Going back to that analogy of 1991, if 3 years ago, instead of CentreBC, if they had revived the Social Credit Party, and they had spent that time, and there was a leader of the Social Credit Party in the next debate, and that person was intelligent and charismatic and hardworking, that could have been an opportunity. But CentreBC, is Mike Bernier going to emerge as a charismatic, feisty leader? I don't know. Does he understand urban BC as well as rural BC? I don't know. I think he has a role to play. And I know there'll be people saying, don't split the vote. I've never agreed with that. I think every voice, going back to conversation, every single voice will change the outcome. Even having a Green Party leader there who may or may not win one seat is going to help change public policy. We need those voices. We
Okay,
need them.
this is a great segue for me, and it's not on
Okay.
our sheets. It's not anywhere that I thought we would be going, but we're
Okay.
having I think we're having a great conversation, and I
Mhm.
have to make some linkages here.
Okay.
There have been, so we're in the latter part of 2026. I know we don't like to date ourselves, but it's relevant to this situation just before the midterms in the US. And there seems to be an emerging new kind of leader down there on the left, on the Democratic side, one that is despised by the establishment people, by the older folks, Democrats.
Right.
And these are articulate, young, progressive, ideologically strong, coming up with ideas that, generally speaking, us older folks, not you, Judy, would say, "What the hell is
I'm
this?"
older.
You know, and and yet they're winning. It's sort of like a populist kind of candidate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could that emerge in BC? Something completely different, where
Yeah,
where the
it
old
has to.
go, what about this old way of doing things?
No, it has to emerge in BC, and not just BC, Canada. I mentioned names like Adrian Dix and Mike Farnworth, and I'm sure if we peel behind the curtain, there's going to be Mosa Huda, and we know Glenn Clark's daughter is in there, the long hand of Glenn Clark leaving the Pattison thing. These guys, like, look, you just peel that onion, and it's all the people I knew in the 80s and 90s. Okay. I'm a grandmother now, so actually I do qualify as an old person too, John. But I'm waiting. I saw my millennial kids really start to engage in politics in the last federal election and starting to engage. They're all conservatives. Oh no, my son isn't, but my daughters and their husbands are. And I understand that because in that conservative mindset is where they see freedom from what they feel is maybe government imposed restrictions, including taxation, irresponsible spending of their money. I mean, I get it. I mean, governments are just not being that responsible with money, especially provincially, in my opinion. There's often not a business plan, etc. So I see that. So we will see those leaders. Now, you said on the left, and yeah, we've got guys like Mamdani, doing amazing things. I'm not sure that they identify as right and left. I think that they see more of a need for a holistic solution. But there is a tension between I need to make sure my family can afford to eat and have a place to live, and the world is on fire. And the world is on fire. I use that as both a metaphor and a specific reference. The world is on fire captures everything that they feel is so big, it's outside their control, that they believe all the other generations have messed up. And I feel like they've parked that. Like even to the point that my granddaughter doesn't recycle. And I said to her on our last, road trip, where the refundables are money, it might just be 5 cents, right? I said to her, my generation fought for recycling. Your mom did it, and you're throwing out refundables. Like, what are you doing? But they're past the point of thinking that those problems can be solved by direct individual action. It's like it's so messed up. So they really want to see somebody just make life more affordable, and I think that's where the conservative message comes in. And unfortunately, I do see a rise in the othering. Do you know what I mean? Othering. Oh, the natives, they got all the money. They've got all they're trying to steal from me. So it's othering. The immigrants, they're taking all the good jobs, the othering. And as humans, we have a deep biological response to othering that goes back to tribal days, where when we can identify the enemy, we can protect our family. That's what that is playing to, a very primitive base message that if we can vilify an other and say, I will protect you from them, I'll protect you from the natives, I'll protect you from the immigrants, I'll protect, then the kids are going to let go of issues that are too big, like the world being on fire, or the downtown east side, just round up all the mentally ill people and put them in jail, right? So, because it solves the problem that they can't solve. They say, you guys haven't solved it anyway. I just don't want to be seeing human feces in the alley. So just deal with it. And I don't want to pay more money. Stop giving free drugs with my tax dollars to those people. Right? I get it. There's and somewhere in the middle is the solution, but I don't feel that we have any leaders doing that at any
Well,
level.
and I'm going to say something nice about people that I know you generally support, who I believe is sane in doing the right things
Okay.
at this moment, and that's Mark Carney. I mean, do we really want anybody else at the helm of our national politics than Mark Carney right now? On the world stage, he is actually taking a leading role. I think we have a leader right now who's doing an amazing amount of good work. Is it going to lead to everything that we hope for? Probably not. There's no perfect society out there. We have to work hard to move the needle, and hopefully we're moving Canada and British Columbia in the right direction. And final question for me is Mark Carney. I mean, he's pushing for this Kuzma solution, and he's saying they're working really hard. I get the impression they're dragging the puck. Like they're going to let things go the way they're going to go. They're going to wait for the midterms. They're going to wait for Trump to lose the Congress, maybe lose the Senate too, and then get in and get a better deal. Why get the deal now? If they wait a few months, they can probably get a way better one if Trump has been trimmed down.
So I think you're right on the money. And the head of the Auto Parts Association was on CBC yesterday and said more or less that they would rather wait to get a better deal than sign a bad deal. And now I am not as optimistic of the outcome of the midterm elections as like in terms of that being a solution for anything. Happy to be wrong, but I just feel that if we look at human history and empires falling and paradigm shifts, there's not usually a Hollywood ending there. Like it has to kind of, But going back to Mark Carney's very fortunate that the world shifted the way it did before he came in, with his cape and was helping with things that are in his strong spot, the tariffs and the global banking and economics and business plans and the Arctic. And so that's great. But when I talk about what people are walking past on the street of almost every community, including Kelowna, where you've got all these crazy homeless people and you don't want your kid, you don't want your teenage daughter walking around there without some supervision. Carney can't deal with that. I mean, first of all, mental health is provincial administration. Secondly, all the federal money has to go to sovereignty protection. And I mean, grocery prices, Carney can't solve that either. So, housing, he's trying to do it. Unfortunately, in British Columbia, Gregor Robertson, whom I think is great, but it's a visceral negative response for people when it comes to Gregor Robertson and housing. And so in British Columbia, even the housing thing, the federal government's not going to get a lot of credit for that. So how they address that, I don't know. But if we're just dealing with British Columbia and we're dealing with issues on the ground, I still say there's no leadership on that. And I love Mark Carney, and I think he's doing what he needs to do. But it's not going to help those issues in BC.
Hey, Robin, you said you had the last question, but
that was my last question. You go ahead, John.
I don't know. There's the setup here is so perfect.
Oh, I'm so glad
it's so perfect.
Go for it. Go for it.
We've spent a lot of time on this show asking people questions. We've dived into not many solutions, Judy. And I think we're really coming into a schism around politics, a schism in our time, a revolution of thinking of the way that we solve things, because all of the ways we've chosen to haven't worked. And when you say there are no leaders, I disagree with you. I'm staring at one. So when are you going to get back involved? We need Judi Tyabji back involved. You have an understanding of the entire spectrum of issues.
I mean, John, I love that you would say that. And I don't see a vehicle. There's already four political parties, and there'd be no path for me there. I mean, sure, if BC United, BC Liberals came up and they said, oh, wow, we'd really like an opinionated ethnic woman to lead us who's got experience in politics. And by the way, I believe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think I'm the only one who's written more than one book on BC politics. I've written four. And I think I'm the only female author of BC politics, other than Dr. Patricia Roy wrote academic papers. So anyway, but I digress. Going back to leadership. Yes, I hope you've read it.
I'm in the midst of
John has it under his pillow every night.
So I think that the leadership has to come from community. And there is a new movement. Going back to your question about where is change happening, I'm paraphrasing. Change is happening by moving from a model that started with the Brundtland Commission, where they talked about, at that time, sustainable development, moved to sustainability in the 90s. And I'm seeing a very, very hopeful movement that I am following, that I am immersed in, that I am going to do my best to bring, to facilitate. It's called Regeneration, regenerative community. And it is about placemaking and creating a third place in community, which is a place for conversations, for gathering, for people. And it's interesting because you have to be intentional about the future of cities and placemaking. And what it starts with is conversations and the uniqueness of the place. And every single political movement that has ever been successful starts at the grassroots. Regeneration is a grassroots movement. It is started just in the last maybe 2 years. Ironically, COVID needed to break a lot of things to make space for regeneration. The accelerated rate of climate change that we're seeing around the world will push regeneration. Going back to, we won't be taking out trees, we will be depaving, we'll be adding trees, we will be redesigning, it will be planning from the grassroots level, and it will push our leaders into doing it at a bigger level.
I think that's a yes, Robin. I'm hearing a yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hearing a yes.
There was no political yes in there. There's no path for me, John. Honestly, I would love to solve the problems, but someone would have to say, here, we have a path.
But there is a suggestion that by offering opinions on a show like this, you are helping the process along. People hear something that you say and it'll go ding, hey, that's a good idea. And they may never credit you for it, Judy, but you never know. And
I don't care.
We always like to make sure that our guests know that we think that they're great, because we wouldn't bring you on the show if we didn't. So we want to thank you very much for rumbling with us again. You certainly gave us a few punches, and we enjoyed that. And rumble on.